Michael Pearson strolls down Fifth Avenue, consulting his phone's map while sidestepping hurried New Yorkers. His charcoal suit, despite the humid June heat, remains crisp and unwrinkled. Unlike the frantic energy surrounding him, Michael moves, with deliberate calm, pausing occasionally to admire the architecture. Officer Ryan Donovan notices the man from half a block away. Something about the guy's unhurried pace, his too-perfect posture, triggers an instinctive suspicion. 3 years on the beat has taught Donovan to trust his gut. He adjusts his belt, straightens his cap, and approaches. "Excuse me, sir. NYPD. Mind if I see some ID?" Donovan's voice carries the distinctive outer borough edge that makes tourists flinch. Michael turns, surprised but composed. "Certainly, officer. May I ask what this is about?" Donovan's eyes narrow at the distinctly Canadian accent. "Just routine. You've been circling this block 3 times now." "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Michael replies, reaching slowly for his wallet. "I'm simply trying to locate my hotel. First time in Manhattan." "Sure, buddy. ID. Now." Donovan's hand shifts subtly toward his holster. Michael produces a simple black wallet, extending it with steady hands. "Here you are, officer." Donovan snatches it, flipping through what appears to be a standard Canadian passport. He frowns at the lack of additional credentials. "What's your business here exactly?" "I'm attending a conference at the—" "Save it." Donovan cuts him off, spotting something in the passport that deepens his scowl. "Your visa status isn't clear. We're going to need to verify this at the station." "Officer, I assure you everything is in order if you just—" Donovan spins him around, cuffs clicking into place before Michael can finish. "You talk too much. Let's go." The squad car's interior smells of fast food and cheap air freshener. Michael sits perfectly straight despite the handcuffs, watching Officer Donovan radio dispatch. "Got a potential visa violation. Canadian national. Acting suspicious around the financial district." Michael clears his throat. "Officer, if you check page 3 of my passport, you'll find my diplomatic—" "Did I say you could speak?" Donovan's eyes meet Michael's in the rearview mirror. "One more word, and I'll add resisting arrest." 2 pedestrians watch the scene unfold from the sidewalk. One, a middle-aged woman in a business suit, raises her phone. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, ma'am," Donovan calls out through the open window. As the car pulls away, Michael notices a young police officer on foot patrol. Their eyes meet briefly. The younger officer's expression shifts from curiosity to confusion. "Jim, that guy you're bringing in. What did he do?" The voice crackles over the radio. "Potential national security concern," Donovan responds, embellishing. "Foreign national scoping financial buildings." Michael shakes his head but remains silent. His expression betrays nothing more than mild inconvenience. They arrive at the 17th precinct, where Donovan yanks Michael from the back seat. Several officers glance their way as Donovan marches his catch through the doors. Officer Rodriguez, desk sergeant for over 20 years, looks up from his paperwork. "What have we got, Donovan?" "Canadian national suspicious behavior, possible invalid documentation." Michael finally speaks. "Sergeant, there's been a serious mistake. If you'd—" Donovan jerks the handcuffs. "I told you to keep quiet." A detective, passing by, slows his pace, studying Michael with growing interest. "Jesus, Donovan," Rodriguez mutters, noticing the quality of Michael's suit. "Did you even call this in before bringing him here?" From across the room, a veteran detective whispers to his partner, "Oh man, he has no idea who he just arrested." The booking area buzzes with fluorescent lights and tired conversations. Michael stands at the processing desk, still handcuffed, while Donovan fills out paperwork with obvious satisfaction. "Got myself an international incident waiting to happen," Donovan jokes to Officer Peters. "Guy was casing buildings downtown." Michael remains silent now, his eyes scanning the room methodically. He makes brief, meaningful eye contact with the precinct's security camera. "Name?" the booking officer asks wearily. "Michael James Pearson," he responds, voice clear and measured. The officer types, then pauses. Frowns. Types again. Looks up. Date of birth? March 4th, 1975. More typing. Another pause. The booking officer glances at her supervisor, who's now hovering nearby. Donovan, oblivious, continues his story. "Should have seen how he was walking around like he owned the place. These Canadians think they can just wander anywhere." "Donovan," the supervisor cuts in. "A word?" "In a minute. Let me finish the booking." Detective. Rossi, 30 years on the force, approaches with a printout. His weathered face has gone unnaturally pale. He exchanges glances with the booking officer, then looks at Michael with new understanding. "Officer Donovan," Rossi says quietly. Step. Away from the desk. "What? I'm in the middle of—" Rossi slaps the printout down. "This came through when his name hit the system." Donovan glances down, irritation morphing into confusion. The paper bears federal letterhead and security clearance markers he's never seen before. Captain Harris emerges from his office, phone in hand, face ashen. "Who arrested Michael Pearson?" he demands. Donovan raises his hand uncertainly. Harris stares in disbelief. "Wait, you arrested Wei Chu?" The precinct transforms from routine chaos to tense silence in seconds. Officers who moments before were joking and filing paperwork now stand rigid, eyes darting between Captain Harris, Donovan, and the handcuffed Canadian. Captain Harris's knuckles whiten around his phone. "Get those cuffs off him, now." Donovan hesitates, confusion etched across his face. "Sir, I don't understand. He was acting suspicious. Possible visa violation. Did you hear me, officer? Remove the restraints." Harris's voice drops dangerously, low. Detective Rossi steps forward, key already in hand. "Allow me, Mr. Pearson. My sincere apologies for this misunderstanding." He unlocks the cuffs with practiced efficiency, then steps back with a slight bow of his head. Michael rolls his shoulders, rubbing his wrists. "Thank you, Detective." His calm demeanor remains unchanged, as if being arrested and then suddenly treated like royalty is an everyday occurrence. The precinct door bursts open. A woman in an impeccable suit strides in, flanked by two men wearing earpieces. Her badge flashes, Department of State. "Captain Harris," she acknowledges curtly. "I see you've received our call." "Just now, Ms. Winters, we're correcting the situation. Immediately." She turns ice-blue eyes toward Donovan. "You're the arresting officer?" Donovan stands straighter. "Yes, ma'am. Officer James Donovan." He attempts confidence, but his voice wavers. "Do you make a habit of detaining foreign diplomats?" "Without cause, Officer Donovan." The blood drains from Donovan's face. "Diplomat?" Michael observes the exchange with the detached interest of someone watching a mildly entertaining play. His posture has subtly shifted, no longer simply a polite tourist but a man accustomed to command. Captain Harris motions toward his office. "Mr. Pearson, please accept our deepest apologies. If you'd like to discuss this matter privately—" "That won't be necessary yet, Captain." Michael's voice, though still polite, now carries unmistakable authority. "I believe Officer Donovan and I have unfinished business to address first." Ms. Winters nods to her companions, who position themselves by the doors. The message is clear. No one leaves until this is resolved. Donovan's eyes dart around the room, searching for allies and finding none. Every face reflects the same realization. His career is imploding in real time. "Officer Donovan," Captain Harris growls through clenched teeth. "My office, now." "Actually," Michael interjects, his first genuine smile appearing, "I'd prefer we handle this here. Transparency seems appropriate, don't you think?" The commanding officer storms in from the hallway, badge glinting under fluorescent lights. "Uncuff him. Now." Donovan's face reddens as he watches his carefully constructed authority crumble. "Captain, with all due respect, I was following protocol. This man was behaving suspiciously near sensitive locations. I was looking for my hotel," Michael interjects calmly. "You circled the block 3 times. "Because your city's grid system confused me, officer. A common tourist predicament." Captain Harris pinches the bridge of his nose. "Donovan, do you understand what's happening here? Do you comprehend the severity of your actions?" Donovan stands his ground, desperation creeping into his posture. "Sir, we can't just let foreign nationals wander around taking pictures of financial buildings. That's literally what they trained us to watch for." Ms. Winters steps forward. What Officer Donovan fails to understand is that Michael Pearson isn't just any foreign national. An older detective pulls Donovan aside, whispering urgently in his ear. Donovan's eyes widen, his face transitioning from defiant to horrified. "In real time, Deputy Minister?" he mouths silently. Michael adjusts his cuffs, the expensive fabric of his suit settling perfectly across his shoulders. "Deputy Minister of International Security and Intelligence Coordination, to be precise. Here at the personal invitation of your Secretary of State." The room temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Officers who had been pretending not to eavesdrop now stare openly. Donovan starts. "Was about to detain a man carrying diplomatic credentials without following proper verification protocols." Ms. Winters finishes for him. "A man who happens to oversee Canadian-American intelligence sharing, border security cooperation, and counterterrorism efforts." Captain Harris looks physically ill. "Mr. Pearson, I cannot begin to express—" "Please." Michael raises a hand. "This isn't about diplomatic incidents or international relations, Captain. This is about proper policing. Officer Donovan made assumptions based on—" "What exactly?" He turns to face his former captor. "An accent, a momentary confusion with directions, or perhaps just because you could." Donovan swallows hard. The swagger that had carried him through a decade of borderline behavior vanishes. His entire career flashes before his eyes. Not just the commendations, but every complaint filed, every corner cut, every person he'd strong-armed because they seemed powerless. "I was doing my job," he whispers, but the words sound hollow even to his own ears. Detective Rossi leans in again, murmuring additional information. Donovan's face goes pale. "You're kidding, right?" Michael steps closer to Donovan, close enough that only those in their immediate vicinity can hear. "Do you know what I was doing before entering politics, Officer Donovan?" Donovan doesn't answer, jaw clenched tight. 20 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, specialized in internal affairs. Michael's voice remains conversational, almost friendly. "I investigated officers who abused their power. Officers just like you. The precinct has gone deathly quiet, every ear straining to catch the exchange. 8 complaints of excessive force in 3 years, Michael continues. 3 settled out of court, all involving foreign nationals or visitors who couldn't easily fight back." He tilts his head slightly. "Did you think no one was keeping score?" Captain Harris interjects. "Mr. Pearson, I assure you, if these allegations are true, the department will—" "They are true," Michael states without looking away from Donovan. "Your Internal Affairs Division has a file this thick," he indicates with his thumb and forefinger. "But Officer Donovan has powerful friends in the Union. Isn't that right, officer?" Sweat beads on Donovan's forehead. "That's not— You can't. Possibly. Part of my job involves intelligence sharing between our countries," Michael explains to the room at large, "including flagged law enforcement personnel who patrol areas where Canadian citizens frequently travel. Your name, Officer Donovan, has been in our system for 18 months. Ms. Winters produces a tablet, swipes through several screens, then holds it toward Captain Harris. "Full documentation, Captain. We've been monitoring Officer Donovan's interactions with foreign nationals since last year's incident with the Quebec businessman." Recognition flickers in Harris's eyes. The assault complaint that disappeared? Nothing disappears anymore, Michael says softly. Not really. Donovan's shoulders slump as the reality crashes down. You set me up. No, officer. You set yourself up. I simply walked down the street. Michael straightens his tie. The difference between us is that when you saw a foreigner, you saw an easy target. When I see abuse of power, I see a systemic problem that needs addressing. Captain Harris hands the tablet back to Ms. Winters, his expression grim. Officer. Donovan, surrender your badge and weapon. Captain, you can't. Now, Donovan, before I add insubordination to the list. With trembling hands, Donovan unclips his badge and removes his gun belt. The metallic sound as they hit the desk echoes. Through the silent room, Michael watches the process with clinical detachment. Then, almost as an afterthought, he smiles slightly. Now, let's talk about what happens next. The clock on the precinct wall ticks loudly in the silence. Officers who'd worked alongside Donovan for years now find urgent business at their desks, avoiding eye contact. Only Captain Harris, Ms. Winters, and Michael remain focused on the disgraced officer. Here's what happens next, Michael says, voice low but carrying. You will issue a formal apology, not just to me, but to every foreign national whose rights you violated over your career. Donovan's face flushes with humiliation. You want me to personally apologize to every single one, Michael confirms. The department will provide you with a complete list, 27 individuals if our records are accurate. Captain Harris looks ill. 27. Most didn't file official complaints. They were tourists, business people, students, visitors who simply wanted to avoid further trouble. Michael's eyes narrow slightly. But we've documented each incident. Surveillance footage, witness statements, medical reports. Donovan sways slightly on his feet. This is a witch hunt. You can't prove. We already have, Ms. Winters interjects. Your precinct's body cameras are quite effective when they're actually turned on. Michael takes a step back, surveying the fallen officer. Officer Donovan, I'm not interested in destroying you. I'm interested in accountability. The apologies are just the beginning. Captain Harris finds his voice. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Pearson? A comprehensive review of cross-border policing protocols. Officer Donovan will participate in the development of new training modules focused on diplomatic and international visitor interactions. Michael's tone shifts, becomes almost professorial. His experience will serve as a case study in what not to do. You want me to be your example? Donovan's voice cracks. I want your mistakes to have meaning, Michael corrects. I want something constructive to emerge from this pattern of behavior. Ms. Winters slides a document across the desk. Initial terms of cooperation. Your signature acknowledges acceptance of these conditions in lieu of formal charges. Donovan stares at the paper, the full weight of his situation crushing down. And if I refuse? Michael shrugs. Then we pursue this through official channels. Diplomatic complaints, federal investigations, civil suits from those 27 individuals. I suspect your union protection has limits, officer. The precinct holds its collective breath as Donovan picks up a pen, hand trembling visibly. He scrawls his signature, then drops the pen as if it burns. Captain Harris collects the document, face stone. Pack your stuff, Donovan. You're done. Donovan stands motionless as the reality solidifies around him. His career, the only identity he's known for a decade, lies in ruins at his feet. The badge he'd wielded like a shield against the world now sits on the captain's desk, stripped of its power. Officers move around him as if he's already gone, a ghost haunting the precinct. Some shoot him pitying glances. Others, particularly those who'd witnessed his methods firsthand, display subtle satisfaction. Michael adjusts his suit jacket and extends his hand to Captain Harris. I appreciate your cooperation, Captain. I'll be in touch regarding next steps. Of course, Mr. Pearson. Harris shakes his hand firmly. I'll personally oversee the implementation of the new protocols. Ms. Winters checks her watch. The Secretary of State is expecting us at 2, Mr. Pearson. We should leave now to make the meeting. Michael nods, then pauses. He turns to face Donovan one last time. 20 years investigating corrupt officers taught me something valuable, Officer Donovan. The badge doesn't make the person. It simply reveals who they already are. He walks toward the precinct doors, his government escort falling in step beside him. The assembled officers part like water, creating a clear path. Some nod respectfully, others simply watch in stunned silence. At the threshold, Michael stops. Without looking back, he addresses the room. What happened here today isn't about international relations or diplomatic immunity. It's about the responsibility that comes with authority. Remember that. The precinct doors swing closed behind him, leaving a vacuum of silence in his wake. Donovan slumps into a nearby chair, staring at nothing. The officer who'd whispered in his ear earlier approaches cautiously. "Donovan, you okay?" He doesn't respond immediately. When he finally speaks, his voice is hollow. He knew. Before I even approached him, he knew exactly who I was. "What do you mean?" Donovan looks up, eyes vacant. "It wasn't coincidence. He was on that street because of me. The whole thing was—" Captain Harris returns to his office, pointedly leaving Donovan's badge on the desk. The message is clear. It no longer belongs to him. As Donovan finally rises to clean out his locker, the truth settles over him like a shroud. Through the precinct windows, he watches Michael slide into a diplomatic vehicle, calm and collected, as ever. "Funny," he whispers to himself. "You thought I was nobody. Turns out you were.